With the recent announcement that Skydance and Paramount now have their sights set on Warner Brothers Discovery, this has many concerned that a new regime could spell doom for James Gunn and his newly formed DC Studios and DCU that's just getting started. Now, the current boss, David Zaslav, who actually became boss when Discovery bought Warner Brothers, he just recently, he's been a great partner in letting James Gunn do his thing and is paying off. But a new leader could pose a new threat. So, DC Comics, all of DC Entertainment, and the newly formed DC Studios, headed up by James Gunn and Peter Safran, it is owned by Warner Brothers, and it has been for a while. Now, Warner Brothers has had many owners in just the past decade. In 2018, WB was bought by AT&T, and then in 2022, we saw WB merge with Discovery, now known as Warner Bros. Discovery. And this constant changing of ownership, it's largely to blame for a lot of the chaos that plagued the former DC movie universe, the DCEU. There were constant changes in leadership and people trying to get their bonuses before certain sales took place and before, like calendar years turned. That was largely to blame for the clusterfuck that was Justice League. It was just a mess, and DC didn't have the leadership it needed. In fact, it was this constant change in leadership and really just a lack thereof of leadership that allowed Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to try and change the structure of power in the DC universe, or whatever the fuck he was going on about. And that's what resulted actually in Henry Cavill, my beloved Henry Cavill, being briefly brought back to the role of Superman behind James Gunn's back and behind the back of the deal that was being formed and was in the midst of being signed to have James Gunn take over DC. And James Gunn, he didn't fire Cavill. There were no plans to bring back Cavill. So when James Gunn was officially brought on, he was really cool to sit down with Cavill and explain the Rock really kind of gave him some false promises that he really wasn't in the position to give. And it was just a shit show. But we got through it, and now we're here. James Gunn and Peter Safran are steering the ship. We've got a great new Superman movie that not only was loved by audiences and critics, not only did it make its money back, but it also made a profit. And of course, we have Creature Commandos, which is beloved. Peacemaker is fantastic. We've got Lanterns on the way, Supergirl, Clayface. Things are going great. And James Gunn has been a real godsend, I think, for the brand. I mean, for the first time in a long time, am actually excited about DC projects. I mean, even as a guy who, I know, I enjoyed The Flash, even that didn't have me like excited. It was just like a constant state of pessimism. But now we've got a really good thing going, in my opinion, and I think the data is showing that. And we're rocking along, and Warner Bros. Is breaking record after record at the box office this year with opening weekends. And naturally, founder and CEO of Skydance, who just bought Paramount, he now has his eyes set on WB. Now, this guy's name is David Ellison. He's a film producer, and he happens to be the son of multi-billionaire Larry Ellison. So, look, in a perfect world, if Skydance does acquire WB, Ellison and the gang, in a perfect world, they would be bright enough to let a good thing keep cooking and not feel the need to fix something that ain't broken. Now, I'm not crazy about the idea of the same parent company owning two of the biggest movie studios in the history of the world. It's a little too much of a monopoly for my taste, but if it does happen, my hope is that they'll keep WB and Paramount as separate movie studios. And that way we won't see a lot of jobs lost in an attempt to combat redundancy, which unfortunately does just happen when similar companies merge. You have people in the same position where you only need one. But if they remain two separate studios that operate under that Skydance umbrella, then that would have me less worried for people's jobs and just the product that the studios are delivering. I don't think you want one studio over too much product, because when that happens, you see things begin to dilute. I mean, we can either go the path of them not releasing as much stuff because they just don't have the bandwidth to do it, and that releasing less stuff is certainly better than releasing a bunch of shit. But if they combine the studios and still try to release the same amount of stuff as Paramount and Warner Brothers were releasing as separate entities, but now together, one studio producing that much stuff, it's probably going to be shit. So the best way to do it, I think, would have them both just continue to operate as they do. And Paramount and Warner Brothers have both been doing great in recent years. So I think that's the best way to do it. And it could even mean that DC Studios, it would also likely become its own separate thing, its own separate movie studio, not under that WB banner, but just directly under Skydance and parallel to studios like WB and Paramount. Now, where this whole thing could really blow up and spell doom for DC and James Gunn is if Ellison waltzes in and wants to clean house, shake things up, and do things his way and enact a bunch of change. And that would be his right as the new owner, the CEO of the company. But I would hope that after dropping the kind of money that they're going to have to drop to get WB, that they'd want to keep the really good stuff that's running well, running and not throw a wrench into the whole thing. I mean, I think that's why you want to buy it. I don't think they're just buying Warner Brothers for their IP. I think they're buying it because they're a successful studio that's doing really well right now. So why not get it while you can before the value just keeps going up and up? Purchase it and have that value transition onto yourself. That's how these business guys think. I mean, they are in this for the money, and the most logical way I think to keep that money flowing from DC is to let James Gunn and Peter Safran keep doing what they're doing. So no, I don't think we're going to see yet another DC reboot, at least anytime soon. I don't think we're going to see James Gunn or Safran get fired. And I think the DCU is safe for now. Granted, this is Hollywood, this is business. These are powerful men who want to do things their way. And if for any reason Gunn were to butt heads with his new bosses over at Skydance, it could spell doom for the DCU. I still don't think we'd see a reboot in that scenario. In that situation, I think we'd see Gunn either, get fed up and quit, or maybe he would get let go because he refuses to bend the knee to any bullshit that they try to force him to do creatively. Something they'd have the right to do as the owners. It just wouldn't be smart on their part. But in the scenario where James Gunn is no longer with the company, I think that we'd see Skydance attempt to continue the DCU. They'd try to keep the thing running and bring on someone new to helm it from that point forward. And they'd want to keep, Corn Sweat Superman and John Cena's Peacemaker and all the other stuff that's part of the DCU, but I think it would probably fail miserably. I mean, Gunn, he notoriously has a very tight relationship with his actors, with his people, his cast especially. And, when he got let go from Marvel, the Guardians of the Galaxy crew were very vocal, Dave Bautista especially, about how displeased they were with Gunn's firing. So I could see Corn Sweat, Cena, Gunn's good friend Nathan Fillion, Millie Alcox, Jason Momoa, and pretty much everyone who's a part of the DCU saying fuck you to Skydance and dipping if they get rid of Gunn, especially, if they reach a point where they're free from their contracts, that I could totally see them saying, all right, I'm done. James Gunn's not here. I don't like how that went. So no, we could see this massive revolt, not only by the cast, but by the fans as well. And I guess at that point they would try to reboot or maybe recast and keep going. And they probably just wouldn't know what the fuck they're doing. And it would just be a massive clusterfuck if you ask me. So hopefully none of that happens. DC's in a good place right now. I hope it stays that way. But let me know your thoughts about all of that down in the comments below. All right. Thanks so much for the question. Next. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general, whatever you want to ask, send it to the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com, link in the description below, and maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.